Clara Barton once said, "I have an almost complete disregard of precedent and a faith in the possibility of something better. It irritates me to be told how things have always been done. I defy the tyranny of precedent. I go for anything new that might improve the past." The House of Clara Barton has been disregarding precedent since even before we were officially a house. When our founders, Jill Donnelly and Katie Lapine, sat in the founders' room to receive our assigned house namesake, they were surprised to open the folder and read aloud, "Mary McLeod Bethune, the House of Bethune." We were the first and only house to veto a namesake. Instead, Katie and Jill chose Clara Barton, called the Angel of the Battlefield, for her courageous action during the Civil War. One year, Becky King and Holly Hall, class of 2011, took a trip to Glen Echo, Maryland to visit Clara Barton's house. They were so excited to walk where Clara walked that the tour guide had to ask them why. They explained that they were part of this sorority-like, Hogwarts-ish, Ivy League-based house system, minus the booze and the sorting hat, but plus Jesus. In fact, defining our house was significantly more difficult than choosing our namesake. Our house exec team agonized over our values and our mission statement. They prayed over each one, thought over them, and backed them up with scripture. In the end, we decided on accountability, transparency, sisterhood, cultural engagement, and excellence. Our house mission statement is this: we, the House of Clara Barton, are committed to preparing women to lead with honesty, strength, humility, and courage. But in the beginning, these values were goals, not standing practices. We were just a group of 10 girls thrown together with no assurance that this wild Kingsian experiment would last even a year.
My name is Liz Lindo, and I was the first Chamberlain for the House of Clara Barton. In 2004, God gave me a fire in my belly to see the House of Barton become a community that would transform the lives of the women through the embodiment of truth and grace. When I shared this vision with our house, I will never forget the moment when the fire caught in their eyes. That is the moment that we became a house. But that's when the real work started. I mean, it sounds warm and fuzzy, but what does love do when you share a 600 square foot apartment with 3 other people? What does it mean when you discover another house member has been cheating on their schoolwork or is making some really poor personal decisions? This is when truth and grace, humility, honesty, courage, strength, and sisterhood have to become more than mere words and become flesh. We didn't want a set of rules. We wanted a set of guidelines that would enable us to honor one another, to protect our community. We talked about what made a community toxic and what made a community healthy. Then we chose which one we wanted. We established a no gossip policy so that throughout the house, so it didn't matter if it was through prayer requests or complaining about your roommate or an everyday conversation, because sisterhood and brotherhood is never more quickly broken than through a loose tongue. And it paid off. We won the first house competition that year. But we didn't get no cup. We got a trip to Boston. And in the words of Heidi Hunterdoss, an alumni from my year, the trip was amazing! And it was made even more so because we secretly imagined that everyone walking around Boston with baseball caps with B emblazoned on their hats was secretly celebrating our victory with us. The finals were the next week, so we went to Cambridge and studied on the steps of the Harvard Library. And I think it gave us a little bit of an extra edge that next week. Bartonites have a very fierce and distinct love for their house. For myself, I cannot speak about my experience at the King's College as a student without mentioning my beloved House of Barton and all that was done for me, or all that God did in me and for me through the house. Bartons have a love and loyalty that everyone around us can see quite plainly.
When we talk about Barton with other people, the things that most often come up are love, laughter, and food. In Barton, we eat well and we laugh loudly. Even when we don't eat well, we laugh loudly. And we try to spread that laughter as much as we can. One year, Eliza Oman, Jenna Morell, and Sarah Broussard burned a batch of cookies. As a joke, we decided it would be fun to see if we could get anyone to actually eat those cookies. So we gave the burned cookies to the House of Lewis and told them they were from girls in QE1. Later, the Lewis boys told us that they had been given cookies that were so awful when they threw them against the wall, they didn't even break. But we managed to convince the guys that they should thank QE1 anyway. The next day, the Lewis boys showed up at the QE1 apartment to deliver a lovely thank you song, complete with a 4-part harmony. In the end, we got our just desserts because Lewis wouldn't speak to us for a week, and QE1 outdid us with homemade pie. We all love this story because it illustrates how we feel about fun and laughter. All Bartons have a deep appreciation for laughter. Being joyful is something of a house principle. Our members are known for having outrageously loud and obnoxious laughs. If you don't have one coming in, you miraculously develop it by Christmas. Approaching life with joy has allowed us to approach each other with joy. Bartons know that where there's another Barton, you have a friend who will laugh with you and who will love you as you are. This environment of acceptance and love has enabled us to pursue the relationships that our house is built on.
The relationships that Barton worked so hard to develop have become a defining characteristic of our house. Bartonites have always had a built-in bond of trust and sisterhood. In the beginning, the members of our house weren't friends, but they were Bartons, and they did things together for the sake of the house. Even today, Barton is our common ground, that we know that everyone in the house has the same understanding of the principles of joy, acceptance, and honesty. When I first arrived at King's in New York City, I didn't know anyone, but the people that welcomed me were Bartons. And by the time I got to my first class, I knew that I already had friends. When an alumni meets a current member of the house, you've never met before in your life, but you feel like you already know each other, and you can talk about everything on your heart over dinner just a few hours later. That is trust that the bond of sisterhood and the emphasis in our house has created. But sisterhood isn't just a word that we use to describe close friendship. We are sisters. For most of us, Barton is our family in New York City, and that extends even after graduation. Last year, 6 Barton alumni lived together in the Bronx and held Bible studies for the house. And that community goes even outside the city. Where there's Bartons, there are sisters. And it's become a Barton tradition that wherever there's another Bartonite, we have a house meeting. There have been Barton house meetings in over 10 countries.
As wonderful and strong as our house has become internally, we exist to build community and influence Kings as a whole. One of the things that we're the most proud of is the fact that we were the first house to win the House Cup. We're also the only girls' house to have ever done so. But even in the years when we don't do so well in competitions, we try to contribute in our own unique ways. One year, Becky King and I, 2 of the whitest girls you will ever meet, rewrote a hip-hop song in Old English for drama competition. Another year, we all went to the roof of the Vogue and smashed mirrors for 3-hour art. In fact, a lot of the rules for short-term art have been added because of something the House of Barton did. They now include a specific prohibition against using, and I quote, any materials that defy every common sense you possess. For the House of Barton, these materials have included things like spray paint and fire in the city room. 3 of the 5 Joe T. Ford Awards for business students who excel in leadership have been awarded to members of Barton. In fact, Liz was the first ever recipient. But Bartonites are only here at King's for 4 years, and we want to impact more than just our school. We want to prepare women who will lead in the world. Every year at graduation, when it seems that we lose a member, we gain an example of what it looks like to live out our house values outside of school. Holly Hall is always honest, even when that's hard. Becky King is strong, but with a quiet humility. Audra Schilling is always courageous, even in the face of fear. Heidi Hunterdoss exhibits an unrestrained hospitality. Clara Barton was known as the angel of the battlefield. We, the women of Clara Barton, strive to become angels of whatever field we find ourselves in.